Hi everybody, Kerry here from Essential Nails. I have my nail trainer hand with 3 colours of Gelées gel polish on some airbrush tips. I'm going to demo some painting. So I've applied 2 coats of colour, 1 of top coat to seal the colour in, and I very lightly buff that top coat layer so it is a matte smooth surface for painting on. So I have some nail art paint in black and a fine detailer brush. I'm going to paint a small design over the top of this satin sheets, the white nail in the middle. You'll have a palette or a piece of foil like I have, and I apply a small amount of paint. This is just so that you can add a little bit of water and mix until you get a good consistency. The paint must flow off the brush very smoothly, but also give you good coverage still, so you don't want to water it down too much. This little design is just a rose with a very small semicircle, half semicircle, sort of like croissant shape in the middle, and I build the petals around it. Now you can see the action I use with the brush. Light pressure gives you a very thin line. You increase the pressure, it fattens the line that you're painting, and then as you lift off again it thins out. So each petal that we're building around the centre of this design is fat and chunky in the middle and skinny at each end, and you just keep overlapping them until you have a full flower. It's quite abstract, but it's very simple, and you can see how quick and easy it is. So when you're looking at elements of a design, you want to make sure that you're not just sticking a flower smack bang right in the middle of a nail. You want the design to flow or elongate the nail length or shape to complement it, and so sometimes offset is usually better for the main focus of the design. So I've set it offside there. You can see that I've decided I'm going to do another one underneath, just a small one. So the design's going to flow down the side of the nail. For those of you that haven't really done any kind of paint work before, I'm simply using these colours just to make it clearer for you on the video. Black obviously shows up very, very well over white, and white over black. White is a great highlighter as well. But if you're using Gelées or doing a normal Gelées manicure over natural nails, or if you've painted Gelées over the top of acrylic or gel enhancements, you can still do that even if you've got 10 nails all the same colour, a plain classic manicure. You could still add a small element of painting work to one of those nails just to give your client that little bit of nail art so that they can be a little bit different. I've just grabbed my dotting tool now, and if you put a small amount of paint on your dotting tool, as you move it, each dot consequently gets smaller because there's less paint. So as a third and final small little element to draw your eye to some detail, I've just added a few small little dots, and it can finish a design off. So I'm going to go on this black one now. I've got some white paint, obviously, so you can see. This is really quick, really simple, and all it is just a few swirls. It's a great thing for some of you to try if you've not done any form of nail art before. You can do this on one nail. Pick a contrasting colour or complementing colour add a few swirls on one nail, maybe a little bit of a gem. I've just watered this paint down a little bit to make it the consistency of milk, really, so that it's still highly pigmented enough to give good coverage, but so that it flows off the brush well. So just with my fine detailer, placing the brush on the nail with a firm but smooth motion, just going to create a swirl. I'm adding a few little extra little bits of detail. And I'm just working this design just up the side of this nail from the tip to give you that extra illusion of length. So really quick, couple of little swirls, not going to add very much time to your overall service time at all. Let the paint dry really well before you top coat it. Just in the corner there, I think I'd probably stick a little crystal just to finish it off. So as an introduction to nail art, perfect little add-ons for your plain manicures that you're doing in salon if you want to dabble into the whole nail art thing. Now I thought I'd do this as well. This is a very simple one-stroke flower, and I'm just going to quickly demo this very simple version for those of you that might want to have a little tester if you haven't done the one-stroke nail art course yet. I've got my angled shader and two colours of paint. Now you want the white highlighter to be on the tip of the brush and the darker colour in the centre of the flower. The white being the highlighted area that the light would hit if it was in real life, if you were looking at the petals of a flower. Generally tend to reflect the light a little bit better. I'm going to blend these paints just on my hand because it's a very smooth surface. So you can see how I've just dipped the two corners of the brush into the paint. We'll blend it until you're happy with a good colour blend. Now with hindsight, obviously I wouldn't use a dark pink over the top of a pink nail, but for demonstration purposes I just thought I would get the white highlighted areas to show up. A lot of people use different techniques. I'm just tapping two marks there on the nail where I'm going to start painting my first petal. Now I use a combination of a tapping and a sweeping motion with the brush, whilst slightly rotating the brush either left or right to spread out the edges of the petal. A lot of people prefer to paint with a clean sweeping motion. Some people do all their one stroke just with the tapping. You can see where I've laid the first petal. I'm going to add two more little elements each side, two more petals with tapping and sweeping as I rotate the angle of the brush slightly as well. Some of these designs can be very complex, but this is just a little taster for you, just to show you quite how simple it is. It's not as difficult as you think. Now you can see I loaded my brush well, and I've done all those petals with one brush, and now that the brush is dragging, I'm going to reload it with some more paint. Depending on the paint you're using, they might not be really high pigment. They might not give you full opaque coverage. They might be a little bit watery. So you can go over this one stroke painting again a second time, adding a second layer of paint to make it clearer. So there you have, there's the basis of a very simple one stroke rose. Going for the centre, putting a little bit more paint in my brush. Now I personally, when I'm doing this, would then go for a smaller brush for the center petals, but this is just to show you that you can do it all with the same size. We're going to make the center of the rose a little bit like a cylinder shape. Very difficult to show you on screen, I'm afraid, without such a good camera. There we go, I'm going to go over it again. So push up and round like a semicircle, but with your brush being flat on the surface of the nail, it's going to make sort of like half a tube, like a drain pipe shape. Now underneath, starting in the middle, curl back out round to finish what would be a little spiral effect. That is the centre of your simple rose. A few more very small petals, framing it. And there we go, that's as simple as that. Half a dozen brush strokes to create a very simple one-stroke flower. With your detailer, you can then go back in with some white paint to just highlight the edges of each of those petals, just to touch it up. Right, here you can see I've got green and white loaded up on my brush to add a second element to this. So I'm going to do some leaves. So I've tapped in 3 little marks there, look, one for the centre out to the side and then out to the other side. Small tapping motions. Another one here. Everybody develops their own style and shape because obviously we all hold the brush differently. You're just going to have to sit and experiment a lot with this. It does take a lot of practice. I've spent a lot of hours just doing demonstration tips in boxes for my portfolio, but there's so many different styles of leaf and flower and petal. It's just a case at the moment of getting comfortable with your brush, getting comfortable with blending colours of paint on the brush and how you're going to apply it to the nail. Some people have a style that's quite bold and a bit abstract. Other people like to do one stroke that looks very, very lifelike. There are a lot of really good one-stroke painters out there that you'll find on Facebook that you can go and watch, and they do a lot of videos. We're going to cover a little bit of it over the next few weeks, but you can see there I've just sort of added that leaf at the top because I didn't think that the picture looked quite balanced, and I've decided that with a little bit of black here, very fine line right through the middle of these leaves as a spine, but because it shows up on camera a bit better. Whereas you could use shades of yellow in leaves with green and darker greens for veins. You can see I've just got a bit of paint there on the cuticle line, but you don't worry about that, we'll sort that out later after you've top coated. So I've picked up a tiny bit of white on my brush and I'm just highlighting around the very edge of some of the leaves now as well, like the light would naturally catch them. Here we are with the dotting tool again. This is another very simple way of adding like a third little element to your design. I'm naturally not very artistic by nature. I didn't do very well at school, but you'll find your own way when you're doing these things. And you practice. You'll add little bits, and then you'll wish that you hadn't because it looks too much, or you'll develop an eye for it, and you'll see when you think that it looks balanced, and you'll decide when you've done enough. So all three of these little different styles, very simple painting. Leave them to dry. They must be very, very dry, because if you top coat when they're not dry yet, you'll drag the paint. You'll ruin the whole design. You'll drag it down the nail. So just here I'm top coating with no white top coat. When I've done one stroke painting on a nail, I generally top coat twice. Apply a thin layer of top coat. You can even just flash cure it. Apply a second coat and then give it a full cure. This is to stop the top coat from sort of delaminating and peeling away over the painted areas. Some of this simple painting, one colour of paint over one colour of glaze, can look fabulous as well if you do it with the matte top coat. So we were talking about the little bit of paint on the cuticle there. Anyway, what you want to do is, if you do get a bit of paint on the skin, top coat first, then cure it, because that little bit of paint will come off the skin very, very easily afterwards with just there, look, with a wipe, with some wipe off solution on, or when you put cuticle oil on. So cure it, and then you can wipe it off after. So they'll go into the lamp now. I'd cure them and then double top coat them, and you can see that as a simple little bit of art. Just add to the service when you're giving a glaze manicure. Thanks for joining me.